Okay, as promised, here is my BNI story. Now, the best way to read in more detail about my BNI story, you can go to sonyanoonan.com, scroll down to the BNI logo, which brings you to this, gives you a bit of insight around what BNI is. Then you can click on here, BNI and me, and takes you to this screen, which is my BNI story. So basically, I started BNI in August 2011. I was invited by a friend who did the perfect invite. It's an invite that we train people to do. Get a text message going, hey, you after more work? And I was like, sure. And she's like, oh, I've got a BNI chapter that's after a bookkeeper. Now, me, having no idea what BNI is, went, sure, I've got room for another client. And she's like, come along to my BNI meeting and see what it's all about. So rocked up, went and did BNI, had absolutely no idea what it was. And of course, back then, if you were visiting and someone else had your classification, you couldn't talk about your business. So she was like, look, you just have to say who you are and that I invited you. You can't talk about your business because I'm the bookkeeper in the room and I can only talk about that. And I'm like, okay, I have no idea why or what's going on, but sure, whatever. She had organized someone from the other BNI chapter that needed a bookkeeper to come along as well. They sat next to me and pretty much hosted me, and it was really great. And I was like, okay. And afterwards in the orientation, he came out and he was like, come along to my chapter next Tuesday and have a look and see what it's like. And so I went along the following Tuesday to have a look at at his meeting. Still had absolutely no idea what BNI was. And they're like, oh, are you going to join? And I was like, oh, well, if my friend is in BNI, then when it's working for her as a bookkeeper, I might as well join. So literally signed up, had no idea what I was signing up to, but did it anyway. And, what are we, 2023 this year? So August this year will be 12 years that I've been in BNI. Totally drank the Kool-Aid, as we say. So my first 5 years of BNI, I was in regional Victoria. So there was 3 chapters, 45 members in each chapters. We had an ambassador and a director consultant and a caretaker executive director. They looked after us, ran it. It was really cool. Learned so much. My first 12 months in BNI, I earned $50,000, and when I joined BNI, I had been in business for 13 years. So I was an experienced business owner, but within 12 months, my business looked totally different. The knowledge in a BNI room from successful business owners is just huge, and the growth you get out of that is just amazing. And the people you connect with, it was just really, really cool. So my positions that I loved the most were, I did a lot of the positions, but the 2 that I loved the most was mentoring, because, I love mentoring and coaching people, right? So being the mentor that was great, because I could set new members up to be successful in BNI. So I was really passionate. I wrote training manuals for every position on the leadership team. I wrote a mentoring program. Before we had the passport, I had a whole mentoring program down. I really got into that position. Another one of my favorite positions was visitor host. So I loved being visitor host because you get to connect with the visitors as they come in. So you actually pick up more work as a visitor host person, because you get to greet the visitor. They are more comfortable with you because you've greeted them, and they will open up and talk to you more. So in 2016, long story, but I moved to North Queensland. I'll do another little short video on what got me to move to North Queensland. But I moved to North Queensland in November and started up there working in Cairns. Took my bookkeeping business up there as well, but I was Area Director of Cairns, which meant that I looked after Cairns because the owner of North Queensland lived in Townsville, and Cairns was 5 hours away. So I was looking after Cairns for him. So while I was in Cairns, I implemented all the training up there. So they were getting MSP, but they had never had any leadership training or anything like that. So I brought all the chapters back into working in the BNI system. I trained them all, introduced leadership training for every position, so wrote all the training manuals around that, got them all trained up. The first 12 months up there, a lot of people left, weren't happy that I was along to make things happen, but then basically took the region from 80 members to 160 members by the time I left. So that was really cool. Launched 2 chapters, grew chapters, had a lot of fun. It was just great. Really loved growing that region. So then I got the chance to move down to Adelaide. So I moved down here. You can read more about what that happens in my story online. So I moved down here, and working down here, it's been really cool. I came down here to work with chapters, to grow chapters, to launch chapters, and coming from North Queensland, where, the population was 160,000, down to a capital city here in Adelaide, to drive down, and I'm driving down the streets of Adelaide when I first got here, and I was like, oh my God, look at all these businesses. Oh my God, look at all these businesses. We can have so many chapters and so many members in BNI down here. There's so many businesses that can really benefit from BNI. This is so cool. So I set myself a goal of having 1,000 members in the region. So yeah, that's really cool. It's a work in progress, but one of my chapters that I've taken from 40 members, they are now 70 members. We've got goals for them this year. They are just the perfect BNI chapter. If you ever want to see how BNI should be ran, you need to come to Adelaide and visit BNI Advantage. They are the best chapter. Awesome people, dedicated to each other, living, breathing givers gain to each other. They are so cool. Such a great chapter. And I'm working with a lot of other chapters to build them up and grow. And, what I find throughout the whole of wherever I've been, people in BNI are just amazing people, right? They are just so cool. Live and breathe givers gain. And even if the people are in smaller chapters, you still find amazing people in those chapters. And I just love working with people. In 2020, I had an opportunity this was pre-COVID, literally pre-COVID, just before COVID hit. I did an interview with Ivan Meisner. So if you go into my blog, or my story online, you can see that recording. Success stories. I love success stories. I have a saying in my launching chapters here. Let me tell you about my cool stories that I have. I love stories about how businesses have become successful in BNI. So so I've got lots of things planned, but I will say that in another video. But I just want to share this with you. This was me going from leaving home, packing my car with my computer, moving to Cairns. So this was 2,900 and something kilometers, 33 hours, drove by myself through Victoria, all the way through New South Wales, and then up into Queensland. So this is still New South Wales. And yes, I do have a red car, so I like this little car that looks like my car. It's really cool. So into Queensland, back into the coast, and then up along the coast through Townsville. So as you can see here, right, this is Mackay. That's where North Queensland region starts. 5 hours up the road to Townsville, and then 5 hours up the road to Cairns. So it's pretty cool. Cairns is a gorgeous place. Well, all of North Queensland's a gorgeous place. If you haven't been there, then get on down. Then this was me leaving North Queensland and making my way down to Adelaide. So this was 3,950 kilometres, 42 hours. So from Cairns down to Townsville, then across Queensland. This one's going a little bit slower. I should have made it a bit faster. So chuffing along across Queensland. Mount Isa was my first stop overnight. So there's Mount Isa, stayed there overnight, jumped in the car the next day and made my way into Northern Territory. So this is where I was actually going to stay at Tennant Creek after the first day, but decided to push on. So it was 16 hours from Mount Isa down to Alice Springs, where I stayed the second night. Ended up staying in Alice Springs for 2 days because just needed a bit of a rest after my 16-hour drive. Then jumped in the car, went to Cooper Pedy, which was about an 8-hour drive from Alice Springs to Cooper Pedy, and decided that I was going to stay there. I probably could have pushed on, but it was a little bit too far to go to Adelaide by myself. So stayed at Cooper Pedy for the night, had a look around, chilled out, and then jumped in the car the next day and made my way from Cooper Pedy down into Adelaide with my car fully packed with all my stuff that I needed to work down here. That was my trip. So yeah, that was a bit of fun. That's my little adventure in my BNI. I have been in Adelaide for 2 years, regional director here, helping businesses grow. And what I'm planning to do is connect with people and help them enjoy BNI.